An AEW star has claimed he was ghosted by WWE. A WWE Superstar made his return on last night's SmackDown. And the relationship between Fox and WWE is reportedly strained. So one half of the acclaimed Anthony Bowens was the guest on this week's AEW Unrestricted podcast. He's made some very interesting comments about the fact that WWE, they weren't interested until they found out he did a little bit of a match for AEW. What did he say, Lucas?
He has said, I never really went into specifics about what technically happened. Essentially, I had a dark match, and the next day I was approached by NXT about coming down there after they ghosted me for 3 years.
Nice.
I didn't hear anything back from AEW directly after the match because sometimes Dark airs about a week or two afterwards, or at least in the pandemic world. I said yes.
To going down to NXT for this thing, but then that trickled back to Tony Khan.
Yeah.
So Tony found out about it and then brought me down there a week later. I had a long conversation with him and my tag partner. The next thing you know, I'm with AEW, which is where I wanted to be in the first place. So, I mean, it would have taken place when WWE were in there, let's hire absolutely everybody. But it's an interesting one because like AEW have been deemed as not competition by WWE for a long time, and as soon as they catch wind that somebody's gone down there, isn't signed, is still a free agent, they get straight on the ringer after 3 years. That's not a coincidence, is it?
This isn't the first time there's been stories about stuff like this where an unsigned talent will pop up in AEW and then all of a sudden NXT want a slice of the pie.
Yeah. I mean, he's a really talented guy. I really like the Acclaimed. It's good to see them back doing their thing and everything. He's far stronger in the ring than Max, I would say. He's the sort of the technical guy, as opposed to Max being perhaps the more charismatic guy, I would say. But together, it just totally works. So yeah, I understand why they would want him, but just a very interesting thing to hear him say. Speaking of interesting, a man who is not interesting, Riddick Moss, returning on. That was horrible. I'm not a fan. It doesn't. Riddick Moss is back on WWE TV, making his return on last night's episode of SmackDown. During the show, Happy Corbin hosting the first edition of Happy Talk. Then he was interrupted by Kevin Owens, and Owens was ambushed on the ramp by the returning Riddick Moss. And it seems like he has aligned with Corbin, so there's a very exciting tag team there. We've not seen him since September 2020. Tore his ACL, pretty horrible stuff. He had a dark match before last week's SmackDown, defeating Odyssey Jones. So I'm not especially excited about it. I just think Riddick Moss is just a guy who's there. He's a wrestler and he's fine. He's just fine. And maybe I'll be proven wrong. I'd really like to be proven wrong, but I've not seen anything of Riddick Moss in WWE that's made me go like, wow, that's it. What's he done? Raw Underground. He did the offensive lineman thing. Is that right? With Mojo Rawley. Yeah, you don't remember.
Yeah, he came in with Mojo, and
they put him on the main roster pretty quick. He wasn't kicking about in developmental in NXT for too long, so they obviously see something in him. I just not sure fans do yet, and unfortunately, aligning him with Corbin probably isn't really going to win anybody over. I know he's a heel and everything, but you know what? It's a good guy to be in there with as far as Kevin Owens goes. Kevin Owens can make people, so hopefully Owens does his best to make Riddick Moss, who I was really unfair about that. I apologise. I genuinely wish the best for Riddick Moss, and especially after a torn ACL. It's a horrible injury to get. Good luck to you, mate. I want to see what you can do. I'm the one to impress now. I'm a twat. Fox and WWE's relationship apparently strained. This comes from Fightful Select, and there are a few things that have bothered Fox recently. First of all, the ratings themselves. So they were hoping that Friday Night SmackDown would be pulling in around 3.3 million viewers. The debut did really well, 3.9 mil, but you had The Rock there, didn't you? And now they generally average around 2 million viewers per show. But it's not just that. They're a little bit pissed off that WWE is advertising other streaming services, specifically the WWE Network on Peacock, which is owned by their rival NBC Universal. So you can understand why they'd be a bit,
definitely,
little bit miffed about that. And WWE apparently feel that if Fox didn't want them to advertise other streaming services, then they should have made a play. Fox should have made a play to secure the rights to their pay-per-views. So that makes sense as well. There's a weird one here. Apparently, they're a bit miffed about the upcoming Vince McMahon scripted series, the biopic about Vince, which is coming soon, because Rupert Murdoch, obviously the owner of Fox, is portrayed in not the best possible light in that, and they just thought that was maybe a little bit unfair, and they, in fact, it's mentioned here that they've described that as a childish move. Then again, Rupert Murdoch is truly evil and a twat. He's a despicable individual, so you can't portray him in the nicest way because it would be But that said, like, isn't the thing called like what is it, America? The United States of America versus Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon is going to be the hero in this, isn't he? Because WWE involved, he is going to be the best man in the world according to this document.
How WWE portrays its own history.
Yeah, exactly.
In one documentary.
Revisionist doesn't cover it. So there you go. On a more positive note, Fox is apparently very, very happy about how WWE have made a big effort to stack the SmackDown roster. Obviously, we've seen the returns of Becky Lynch and Brock Lesnar recently, so that's put smiles on faces. Speaking of smiles on faces, I'm buzzing about this. WWE are involved in the American Gladiators reboot. So you may remember American Gladiators, excellent show, used to be hosted by Hulk Hogan over in the States. The Gladiators here was way better because you had Ulrika Johnson, you had Fash, less said about him the better, and you had Jet, of course, who is an excellent athlete and woman.
Even on the reboot, we had Nick Aldis as
Magnus was on it, wasn't
Magnus.
he? Yeah, so they're involved. We don't know what the deal is, but you can assume that they're going to put some wrestlers in who are going to be gladiators.
Yeah, probably.
Riddick Moss, maybe. Yeah. Who would be a good fit for that? Who's big and beefy? I almost said Braun then. I'd love to see. No, Braun's not quick. You've got to be quick. You've got to be an all-rounder, haven't you?
The final boss of Gladiators, Braun Strowman.
Forget the travelator thing. You've just got to batter Braun. Who would be a good all-rounder for something like that? I'd love to see Ricochet doing some stuff in there.
Yeah.
But maybe he's not big enough. He's not big enough for like the pugil sticks. Pugil sticks? That rounds? Let us know in the comments who you want to see on the American Gladiators reboot. We'll let you know when we hear anything. And finally, WWE Superstar John Cena is running for United States President in a movie called The Independent. It's also starring Kathy Bates and Jodie Turner-Smith and Brian Cox, as in the science guy. Brian Cox, the handsome science man who knows...
Oh, I'm not too sure.
Maybe. Well, there you go. Brian Cox, you can look into it. It's all on IMDb, obviously. The Independent is set during the final weeks of the most consequential US presidential election in history and will follow an idealistic young journalist, Turner Smith, who teams up with her idol, Cox, to uncover a conspiracy that places the fate of the election and the country in their hands. Most importantly, John Cena is a part of it. Interestingly, the movie's scheduled to begin filming in November in New York City, which Survivor Series is close by because that's at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. So maybe, just maybe, we'll see future US president, in kayfabe, John Cena pop up at Survivor Series. Looking forward to it. I've never seen a John Cena film. Have you?
I've seen a handful, and they vary in quality.
Yeah.
But like with the Rock's films, the later you get, the better of an actor is becoming. So
I watched Jungle Cruise the other day. I really, really enjoyed it. I like family movies. It was nice. It felt like, I don't know, like growing up watching like Jumanji and stuff like that, you don't really get too many family films anymore, and that was a good... What are we on about? Right. The Rock's great, John Cena's great, and we will see you very, very soon. That's our third news video of the day. I've been Adam.
I've been Luke.
See you in a bit.